Good morning to all of you. Yes, for the second consecutive year, the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment marked National Day of Caring with two key activities that saw the involvement of not only individuals, but communities across the length and breadth of St. Lucia. On the 6th of June, Community Outreach Day was observed and witnessed communities like Grosley, Moshi, Babono, Castries North, Castries Central, and the South, together with Dennery North, Ancillary Canneries, and Viewfort, all staging activities that focused attention on demonstrating acts of kindness and compassion to children, young persons, and the elderly in particular. On June 7th, National Day of Caring, several areas, including the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment, on Constitution Park in Castries for the Showcase of Caring. And of course, most of you would have witnessed ministers, Minister Frederick, myself, and other persons putting together and putting sleeves on mattresses that I used during hurricane season for removing persons off the streets. We would normally have them at the VG complex when a hurricane is called, so we do that for the homeless. So on the National Day of Caring, we witnessed some of these activities taking place on the island. The National Day of Caring shone a spotlight on the ministry's various departments and units, each demonstrating how they contribute to the well-being of St. Lucia citizens through daily acts of caring. The showcase featured the Welfare Department, Community Services Unit, the Division of Human Services, St. Lucia Social Development Fund, the Upton Girls Center, and the Boys Training Center. The Ministry of Equity, in terms of its structure and operations, and demonstrate acts of caring for ordinary St. Lucians in its mandate, in its work. And for the second consecutive year, we showcased on the National Day, on the International Day of Caring, the work of the ministry. This morning, I think I would like to say that the entire program on the 6th and 7th of June was a major success for the second year, but I noticed that the media probably did not contribute as much as showcasing caring acts throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia. The caring of St. Lucians is not just on the 6th and 7th of June. St. Lucians are a caring people. What we wanted and what we would like the media, especially next year to do, is to make an effort to bring alive the caring act of ordinary St. Lucians. It's happening as I speak. There are St. Lucians who at this time, if you go through and you pay attention, are actually doing acts of kindness to somebody else, to a family member, somebody on the street. It happens every day, but we hardly ever promote it and showcase it. Those of the media houses who participated on the 6th of June and the 7th of June on the National Day of Caring, I wish to thank them. I wish to thank the ministry and other agencies, non-government organizations who participated. I would like to thank them immensely and for the success that we've had. But we'll continue next year again, 6th and 7th of June, promoting caring as a value that we should encourage, as a value that we appreciate, as a value that we want to showcase in the ordinary things that we do and how we go about our lives. This is what I wanted to share with you. Do you have any questions for me? Thank you.
Just straying away from that topic just a bit. Last year, you said that the George Charles Secondary School would be transformed into a juvenile detention center. Where are we with that?
Okay, the brief has been developed. We are now preparing a dossier because we have had a meeting with the Caribbean Development Bank, who has interest, would be the main financer or the main source of revenue to do that, to this thing happen. The committee that was established by cabinet to see this is not only looking at the physical structure, but also the structure, the operations. So we are looking at everything as it relates to the new juvenile center, not just the building, but who exactly would be working there. What are the new rules that we come in with? They're reviewing. Is it the same salaries they would be paid? all of the various questions, how many counselors we need. So based on the experience that we have had at the current site, we're not just relocating the Boys Training Center, but it gives us an opportunity to review the structure, the employment arrangements, as well as the programs. Do you need to have, currently there was somebody tutoring them in farming. You had somebody tutoring them in auto mechanics. Is that only 2 areas? These are the only 2 areas that we're going to train young men because they're the Boys Training Center. Then you just have the option of carpentry, farming, and are there other areas they may be interested in? Do you need to have persons paying a salary to do that when you're close to care who are providing the same services? Should there be a better relationship with care services where they can now go to school and learn those various things and reduce the cost of operating the Boys Training Center or Juvenile Center with these persons employed? Can these people better be deployed elsewhere? Like the person teaching farming, should that person better be placed at the Ministry of Agriculture and allow the boys to go to school where they will be trained in agriculture? So all of that is being considered now. We'll start more to prepare what we call a dossier. That dossier would have, yes, the design of the new building, but that dossier would also have the new structure. It will speak to the operations, it will speak to services that will be provided so that the Caribbean Development Bank can evaluate and say, this look like a document. The Cabinet of Ministers would see this dossier. So the planning is so important before you go about and execute. So that is way advanced. I suspect that dossier would be completed by June, July, so that the bank has it on cabinet in terms of all of the work that has been done in terms of design, structure, and operations of a new juvenile center.
There was also some talks about the boys that are currently at the Boys Training Center. Some of them, they said, were there because they were just too young to go to Bordelais, and others were there because they come from homes where they're, disenfranchised. Mm-hmm. Would it be a case where all boys would be transferred to that center, or would they be separated?
Yeah, the discussion is going on, they've had a lot of discussion where that is concerned. Persons boys who need to be detained or they need to be in a detention center would not be in that center where we are caring for boys who need care and protection. So that would be separated. That is one of the outcomes through consultation that we have had. So young men who have serious issues with the law, not somebody who have had an infraction, because one would say all boys who have had issues with the law, one may say should be away, should be detained. Not necessarily. You would categorize the infraction. Somebody who probably underage drove and may not be someone who has a gun and go on and try to hurt somebody. So that would be taken into consideration, and all of that would be part of the operations manual, part of the dossier that is being developed by the professionals who are looking at it.
Say something. Recently, under the same vein of the Boys Training Center, I think recently they had some type of jazz event that recently transpired.
Yeah.
I know you'll make mention to the idea of diversifying the type of avenues and opportunities for them. So talk to me about that, like the jazz. I don't know if that's the first time or if that's a recurrent thing.
This is not the first time. And music as an area of training has been an experience. It has been at the Boys Training Center for some time now. There are persons who go there who expose them to music. So yes, music will be part of the experience in any juvenile center that I'm associated with. Music, physical activities, I think that these 2 areas are important. Yeah.
Let's go back to the day of caring thing. So you guys would have distributed, you said, some essential items to a lot of vulnerable people. But do you think that this is something that needs to happen more than once a year? Because we have a lot of these situations. So is it that there should be a program with people on it, so it's more than just the day of caring, but a yearly thing? Throughout the year instead.
Yes,
sort of thing.
Every day that we are alive, there are persons with needs. There's something to respond to. For me personally, having an opportunity to serve or to care for an individual, it's a privilege. I sometimes say to persons, I benefit far much more in caring for an individual than the person who are receiving the care. Because emotionally, you feel good that you have done a good deed, your body feels better. So I like to encourage persons to look for an opportunity to do something good. Every day you can, it's good. It's better for me. So this morning, I think I may have had an opportunity to serve somebody in terms of some basic caring. I feel good about it, but I was able to reach an individual. We cannot serve everybody, but the Prime Minister makes it possible in his CDP that parliamentarians have some means of assisting some individuals. There are community-based organizations. I think of Alumni, Alam, who care for persons who are vulnerable. They try to meet parents with disabled children. You have the Salvation Army. You have a number of community-based organizations who are involved, and they do so regularly. And we at the ministry provide them with support for them to do what they're doing and encourage them to do more than they are doing. So they receive financial support from the government to continue to do so. So yes, this is happening. I also happy to report getting feedback from Lucia. Again, I think in as much as it's an initiative for consuming, but it's also it was born out of caring, that Lucia in August will launch the prepaid electricity modality. So persons would be able to receive electrical connection in a prepaid mode. So you buy your top-up electricity, you could sit on your phone, and then you could manage, your electricity from that exam. So they're going to pilot it in August. Again, that came out of a caring perspective, looking at the high incidence of people being disconnected and having to serve and help persons reconnect their homes because they cannot afford that modality. I am happy to say that we asked for it. Lucia has communicated to me in August this year, there will be a launch of prepaid electricity. If you have never experienced it, it is something to try. I had it when I was in Dominica, with being in St. Lucia sometimes while I'm here. My apartment, I can see how much was the balance on my electricity bill. I can ask them to switch off the outside light or disconnect the fridge, or tell my landlord he could put $5 on. Even during this week, I spoke with the Minister of Health, Parliamentary Representative Kasani Laville, and he said to me, yes, he's having an activity for Father's Day. And he just gave a guy to top up his electricity bill, $50 for him to have the activity. He didn't have to just say, let me use your bill, your electricity, and then they have to go and assess when the monthly bill comes up. So even persons accessing services and utilizing, it makes a lot more sense. So I'm really happy for that. But this came out of a caring act, that there are some persons who would be better off if they can have electrical connection through prepaid approach. So look out for this. You'll hear more about this. But this, to me, is big. It is one that came out of this administration for a caring purpose. And it will help transform the experience of consuming electricity. And I hope that goes on I hope we get to the day when we can prepay our water bill and then monitor what we're consuming so that we can manage better. Yes.
Right. On the juvenile center issue, you mentioned having the how we call the wards to diversify with the careers, the academic qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
Would that mean these kids, when they leave, would they have a certificate? Would they have some kind of document to show for the time? And what is what would be the age range and the time of duration that they would have to spend in an institute to be released?
No, the children would follow the development in the normal way like every other child. So we're not going to create a different path. It is that while they are in our care, we'll have them to access the skill set that's available, that they're not stigmatized. So you will not say that, well, I got my certificate at the Boys Training Center. No, you got your certificate at the University of the West Indies, at Care Services, at the, at NSDC, where everybody else. So you're not stigmatized. So the same amount of time, the same rules associated. It's just that you have a menu of institutions that are available that they will be able to access than trying to create these areas within the institution itself. You understand? That is what we're trying to avoid, because it's stigmatized that, oh, how did you become a mechanic if you are? Well, I learned when I at the Boys Training Center. That was what it was before. The idea then of that kind of industry, that was set up many years ago, the Boys Training Center, for that purpose. It was mainly for training. It was not supposed to act in what it has become today. So it has evolved. But for more than maybe 50 years, we continue things continue to change as it relates to our young people, but the institution has remained the same. We cannot manage our young people in the current location in the same manner that is 50, 60 years old in the current environment that we are in. So certainly it would be to mainstream the development of our children, where it is irrespective of where they are, into the regular educational system. So there are boys from Boys Training Center who attend the St. Mary's College, for example. There are boys who attend the normal secondary school. So they leave the institution and they go to school. We transport them back home. Home is the institution where they are, because they're there for care and protection. So just like every other child leaves their home and go to school, the wards who are in our care and protection, they leave the same way, just that we transport them, we take them back, we provide for them, we care for them, we get the books, the school books, and the uniform, and every aspect of the being. We want the government home for the wards, boys and girls, to be the best. They want that you could learn from. This is what we're working towards. It is not the bodiless institution where there are programs at the institution, because these people are detained and they are managed differently. And of course, the Ministry of Equity is not responsible for the bodiless facility, and that's not what we are set up to do.
And you said the new institution will be multifaceted, taking care of the boys and the girls from the uptown as well.
Yes. So we're looking at having one for both boys and girls. That's the discussion, because there are many juvenile centers where there are both boys and girls in other jurisdictions. Taxpayers should be aware that the cost of what we operate in currently is extremely high. You have sometimes 5 girls at the transit home in Casaba, but you have a manager, an assistant manager, you have staff there, and sometimes there are more persons working than persons they are caring for. Sometimes you have only 12 children at the Uptown Girls on Cedars, but you have more staff than the people you're caring for. Sometimes you only have 14 persons at the Boys Training Center, but you have a manager, assistant manager, and a whole staff complement. Each one wants a vehicle, and so the cost of operating just about 25 children is so high, and we're not getting the complementarity. So if there's, for example, there's a counselor at the transit home in Casaba, but there's not a counselor at the Boys Training Center, and you need a counselor, because they're separate and each one running their own business. It's like a counselor is not available for the boys, but there's one at the transit home. But when you have one juvenile center, one structure, and then you have 5 counselors, then you can benefit from the complementarity approach, one institution. That is the idea behind having a juvenile center and cutting the cost of operating. Yeah.
For the prepaid electricity, since it's, even though it's still in its beginning stages, I just wanted to know, would it be an option that would be accessible to the entire public, or only for selected persons?
That discussion we're going to have with Lucia, but from speaking to Lucia, they're going to pilot it. But the idea is that it's going to be available as an option for other persons to use, because in the case of Dominica, with the size of the population, it has grown to about over 15,000 persons, and it was not an ordinary business people subscribing to prepaid electricity because they find it's a lot easier. So when we pilot it, and as persons become aware and pay attention to persons having what they call their wallet on a phone showing the balance on their prepaid electricity, and they can manage it, or they could go into any supermarket and buy a top-up for electricity, persons may then subscribe to say, but wait, I prefer having prepaid electricity than having postpaid, and that will create a demand for the service, just like persons that have postpaid telephone bills and prepaid approach. I think similarly, it would become that norm. Again, that would be the principle of social justice, that would be the principle of equity, and because persons need to have an option to be served in the way that is comfortable to them. That, I think, is ultimately what we're working towards as a government.
Are you ready? Okay, so I now present our final speaker, Honorable Dr. Virginia Albert Poyot, Minister for the Public Service, Labor and Gender Affairs.
It's still morning, but good afternoon. Yes, I just want to share briefly with the press that last week I attended a conference in Santiago, Chile, where we were celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Belém do Pará Convention, which speaks to the prevention, punishment, eradication of violence against women. It was 30 years since we had this convention established in Brazil, among the OAS, Caribbean and Latin America. And St. Lucia was the second country in the Caribbean that actually signed to this convention. I contributed on a panel which looked at how we can use technology to combat the issue of violence against women, and how technology is also contributing to violence against women, because we know that social media is almost bringing the global village and things that people may not be aware of. But now with social media, people have a lot more access to information, and therefore there could be quite a bit of abuse and insults and other ways of stalking persons using the media. So we have to be very careful how we use technology so that we don't use it as a tool to continue the violence against women. There were 24 countries in the OAS that participated in that conference. And I was privileged to be one of the panelists in that conference. And it was the 9th such conference that they had. And as a result, we were able to give a report of what St. Lucia has done so far in combating the issue of violence against women. And interestingly, the domestic violence bill was featured very prominently in that meeting as one of the most progressive legislation looking at the issue of violence against women. And domestic violence is a critical area where the majority of persons who benefit from the good things that came out of this legislation are women. Usually you find a lot more women are abused in a domestic setting than men. So in that, we are looking at how we can continue in putting legislation in place, engage in activities to raise the awareness of the public so that people continue to live in harmony with each other. Men and women are supposed to be equal partners. You are not supposed to abuse men. We are not supposed to abuse women. And therefore, we do not want violence against either women or men so that we can have a peaceful society to live in.
Good afternoon. I have a question on the livable wage. In terms of how the final figure was drafted, we would have been privy to some of the calculations used. Some of them were from the census, from the 2016 study. But in reality, I would say as a person again, because you would have to follow procedure and understand how the commission came up with the figure, do you strongly believe that it is sufficient for an individual to live on $6.50 an hour?
The livable wage is a discussion that, as Minister of Labour, I have not engaged in because that is still in the hands of the Minimum Wage Commission. So the Commission is still deliberating on the matter. They have made a proposal which they have put out there in the public domain, and therefore government is waiting for the final recommendation from them. When we have received the final recommendation, then government will speak to the matter.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Madam Minister. On the question of the violence, we know that there's been some promotional campaigns. I think just last December you had the Know Your Rights campaign. Mm-hmm. How would that fit in with your last conference in terms of the awareness and bringing this message out to the wider public? How would this? Is it still continuing, and has it achieved results? The Know Your Rights gender.
Okay. Yes, that's an interesting comment in that we have this project going on with the French government through the French embassy. It is a 2-year project, so it is still ongoing. And as you mentioned, it's a campaign. It's a matter of raising the awareness of people on how persons need to know their rights, especially in the domestic setting, whether it's a woman or a man. And therefore, we have engaged in a number of training programs. We have the billboards erected in different locations so that we are constantly reminding persons that people need to know their rights. You do not allow persons to abuse you. You do not allow persons to take advantage of you, whether you're a man or a woman. So that campaign is ongoing, and we are actually engaging a number of stakeholders, civil society organizations, and non-governmental organizations. That is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Gender Affairs in collaboration with the French government.
Okay, and then on the labor issue, we heard there'll be some transformation, of the department, but in terms of the labor department itself, we know there are a lot of little industrial issues that that workers get tangled in. For instance, the construction workers, the security workers, these are two areas that are not well represented by the union. Would the labor department play a pivotal role in seeing the minimum wage, this livable wage, that all workers should get an equal, fair share of this cut?
Well, as you know, the issue of minimum wage has been a long, drawn-out discussion for quite a few years now. And right now, government has taken the bold step to establish a minimum wage. So that is the first step. And therefore, we take it from there. And there are a number of sectors that are asking for their own minimum wage. But we are actually setting a baseline where we can use that to work from that. And if we set up a baseline for minimum wage, all employers will know that they cannot afford to pay workers anything below that. That does not mean they cannot pay them above, but we are telling them not anything below that. But when we speak of minimum wage, you also notice that there is an hourly rate. And with this hourly rate is going to create some new issues as to whether you pay somebody for the day if the person did not work for the whole day. So this is going to be a new issue that might emerge. But we are hoping that if somebody works a full month, given your 8 hours a day, that you should not earn anything less than that. And we have found that based on the research by the Commission, they have indicated that 12,000 to 13,000 people will benefit from that increase in terms of the minimum wage, whatever that is. So we are looking forward to see at least people will have a little more money so that they can buy food, pay their regular bills, and so on. So government is looking very closely because minimum wage basically is to target the most vulnerable set of persons, and not persons who are way above and have a decent living standard. there were some of the sectors who would have liked the commission to look at minimum wage in other sectors. But that was not their mandate at this time. We are just looking at the baseline and let us work it upwards.
So would you say, moving forward, the Labour Department would have to play a more pivotal role in the implementation of this?
Exactly, because the Minimum Wage Commission will be almost like the watchdog in terms of implementation. So we have to create that kind of new unit, because people will come in with reports on employers who are not paying them and they should pay them, and we have to address that. So that is a new area that will be added to the Department of Labor to address that particular issue. All right. I also have one other. This week is Public Service Week. And on the 23rd of June every year, we have Public Service Day. And this year, Public Service Day will fall on a Sunday. So therefore, we will not have the regular activities we had like last year on the day itself. We will have an activity, but not the major activity on the day itself. So for today, which is 17th of June, we are starting the first activity, and where we will have job shadowing. We have a number of young persons who are actually observing other people in different departments. So they are shadowing them as maybe, a secretary or somebody who is an accountant. They are actually in all the different departments. And for today, then we have Mingle Day. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we have Mingle Day. And on Wednesday, they have Staff Appreciation Day. Public officers always say they do not appreciate their work. So the different ministries are going to engage in activities to show appreciation for public officers, for the work that they do and the service that they give to the public. On Thursday, we were supposed to have what we call the top performer, the most outstanding public officer. Because of cricket and all that other activities going on this week, we have decided to postpone this activity. So when we do this activity, we are going to focus heavily on the public officers. Each ministry will identify the top performer in the ministry. And out of all the top performers, we are going to select the most outstanding public officer. And you have to be very careful when you do that so that people don't call foul and say, oh, how they choose their friends and so on. So we have an independent committee that will look into that. So we are hoping to have this activity outside of the week. And then on Friday, we have an ecumenical service at the Holy Trinity Anglican Church, starting from 9:30 a.m., where all public servants from the different ministries will gather and pray and ask for the Lord's blessings and guidance for them to do their work. And after the church service, we have what we call the Public Service Fair at the Derek Walcott Square. Each ministry will be setting up their own booths there, displaying their work and engaging the public on what they do and how do they serve the public. We did that last year. It went very well, and we gave first, second, and third prizes to the most outstanding booths. We are also encouraging ministers to come out, permanent secretaries, to engage the public, to be out there and to talk to people about their different departments and what they do to serve the St. Lucian public. So on Sunday, on Saturday we have a rest day, but Sunday we will have a fun walk and sports activity. So it is a very packed week. We are competing with T20 cricket, but we are not giving up because we know that public officers feel very proud to serve the St. Lucian public.
I want to just make an announcement today that Cabinet has approved the special consideration for the upward mobility of customs officers from the Customs and Excise Department. Let me give you a little background on that. There is something called benchmark qualifications. Now, each customs officer had to meet the benchmark qualifications so that they can be promoted. The benchmark qualifications were implemented when several customs officers were already at work. So they found themselves stuck in a situation where they could not be promoted because they did not meet these benchmark qualifications. That was happening for a long, long time. When I became Prime Minister, because Customs and Excise is under my jurisdiction and under my portfolio, I promised the customs officers that we are going to regularize their status. So we formed a committee. Again, I was saying it before, we formed a committee and we got a consultant to work with the Ministry of Public Service so we could find a way where we could ensure that the officers with the approved benchmark, with the approved qualifications, would meet the benchmark requirements so they could get promoted. So that means that officers who for years had been complaining that they were not being promoted because they did not have the benchmark qualifications now can get promoted based on the cabinet's approval of a memo or recommendation that came from the customs themselves. So, he who feels it most knows it. The customs officers themselves came up with their recommendations and the cabinet approved it. So, from July 2024, the Public Service Commission now will have equivalent qualifications that will meet the benchmark qualifications for the upward mobility of customs officers. So, example. Let's start from the point of assistant customs officer number 1. And these benchmark qualifications, these equivalent qualifications start from grade 3 and they end up to grade 16. Everybody is involved because everybody was complaining that they could not get, they weren't getting promoted because of that situation. So, grade 3, it has assistant customs officer, 3 Caribbean secondary school examination certificates, or 5 years previous relevant professional experience as an assistant officer, and they've added to it now, performance appraisal and score, exceptional and very effective for the past 2 periods under review, and successful completion of assistance officer's basic course, basic executor, drafting, report writing, and training courses. We've included that. So we're saying that even though the person hasn't got the CXC, the benchmark, if they have that, they can get promoted. Now, that issue also arises in the police force and the Inner Revenue Department. So we are working on it for them also. But customs we dealt with customs first and then the police force, because again in the police, there are benchmark qualifications. So you find a good policeman, because he hasn't got a degree, he can't get promoted because of benchmark qualifications. Very good policemen, good on the ground, doing what they have to do, but they don't have a degree. So we're going to review them also, so they have a similar provision. We start with customs, then the police, then we go to inner revenue. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you start? Today is a very important day for me. Open to you.
Prime Minister, tomorrow going to Parliament. Tell us about it. What is done on the paper and what is the result?
Oh, well, tomorrow is a regular Parliament meeting. What's very important to us is that we're going to be amending the Pensions Act. So no civil servant will get less than $725 per month pension. That's what they're going to be amending tomorrow. To me, that's significant. There are other bills on the table. The Cooperative Societies bill is there. There's still some questions coming in on that, so that may not go through stages. But what's significant to me is the amendment of the Pensions Act, where our pensioners will not be receiving, government pensioners will not be receiving less than $725 per month. And that is in addition to the fact that our NIC pensioners, we've increased it now, the NIC, after consultation with the actuaries, on the request of the government, no pensioner will be getting less than $500 a month in the first instance. That's an increase from $300. Many of you may not know that there were 2,000 people in this country getting a pension of $2,000, $300 a month, more than 2,000 people. And from the 1st of August, that's going to be changed. So these people, it's not something that we think is something to boast about. In fact, we need to increase it. But I'm saying to you that this government, with our people-centered policies, are ensuring that everybody, from the youth to our retired people, are will try to ensure that they have a better quality of life. So pensions are going to increase, and we hope, as you know, the NIC is a science, pensions are a science. We're going to be asking the NIC to speak to the people, the actuaries. Hopefully, we'll see if we can increase it again next year. But from the 1st of August, we are going to, no pensioner in St. Lucia will get less than $500 a month. And 1st of August also, we're going to implementing the minimum wage. And I was traveling, so I'm not sure. But as you know, the minimum wage was established by a minimum wages commission, where everybody was involved. The government, the private sector, the employers, everyone was involved. And this is why, if you listen carefully, in my budget statement, I never stated what the minimum wage would have been, because I was waiting for the scientific assessment by the minimum wages commission. And the process for implementation of a new minimum wage was well laid out according to the law, and that's what I followed. We do things according to the law, not according to speculation and rumor. We do it according to the law. So on the 6th of June was the last date for the submission to the Minimum Wages Commission. You have got that submissions, and they're looking at it. I have not received these submissions because they're supposed to go to the Minimum Wages Commission. When they look at it, they'll deliberate, and Cabinet will make a decision. So this is how it works. So I can't speculate about it, nor will I make any statement about it, because our position was the government thinks, according to our manifesto promise, and according to our promise to the people of St. Lucia, that the minimum wage should be increased. The concept of the livable wage is in tandem to the minimum wage. And fortunately, based on the calculations by the Minimum Wages Commission, not by the government. You see, I want to make these things clear. When we take these policies are taken on a scientific basis by people who are not involved in the government machinery as such, not by politicians. So, incidentally, the minimum wage coincided with the livable wage. So in a fortunate situation in that the minimum wage and livable wage coincide. But as I said, you get more details from after the consultations has been held with the people who raise objections or concerns to the Minimum Wages Commission. This is where we are now. But hopefully, on the 1st of August, the people of St. Lucia will have the benefit of new pensions and a new minimum wage. The people of St. Lucia, new pensions and new minimum wage. Negotiations with the civil servants and the public sector are moving on very smoothly. We've said that we desire no conflict with the public servants or the civil servants. We're going to negotiate. The negotiating team has been mandated to try to get the negotiations to go as quickly as possible. Hopefully, these should proceed as quickly as possible, and we hope that we can come to an amicable resolution, and the public servants and the civil servants can have what they are due. The government has not got involved as yet. Right now, the negotiating team, the government has not got involved. The government the Minister of Finance gets involved at the back end. We don't go up front. We allow the technocrats to do their thing. That is our style. That's how we operate. The technocrats do their thing. The technocrats do their thing based on scientific and based on research, because too many decisions in Lucia are taken without any research. Too many things are said just from people's head. Research and documentation. And I also want to tell you that I'm very happy with the Darren Sammy grounds. It's in a pristine situation, and all my colleagues in the region have been calling me. In fact, Ian Bishop said that the pitch was one of the best pitches in the region. And you saw the runs that was scored there. In my time, I played some cricket, so I can tell you something about that. I can tell you the runs that was scored there. It's the highest total. Yesterday, 200 runs were scored there, day 180 something. So it's a very good pitch. And you see how it was beautifully prepared. The grounds were good. The Darren Sammy grounds and the Minderfield Park. You must go there to see what's happening there. And the Grosley playing field. Go there and see what's happening there. I invite you to the Marshall grounds in a couple of weeks to see what's happening there. And I'm also going to invite you to about between 15 and 20 more playing facilities in this country. For the first time, this country is going to get, the young people of this country are going to benefit from upgrades to more than 20 playing facilities in the country. And that is why we have confidence when we invest $80 million in the young people of this country. That's the confidence we have, because we believe in them. So you saw the Darren Sammy grounds, you saw for yourself. I knew you had a tour before, but right now the public were there, and tonight we're expecting a bumper crowd for the St. Lucia Afghanistan match. We're very excited, because good things are happening in St. Lucia, very good things. We're very excited about our country, very excited.
Prime Minister,
Yes.
on that note, have you seen an increase for tourism through the World Cup?
In fact, there are literally thousands of people who are waiting in Barbados to come over. The Barney Army is coming over for the match between the West Indies and England. That's next week. And in fact, tonight, I understand all the seats have been sold. All of them. I underline the word sold. All of them have been sold. So we're very excited. I see St. Lucia, and when you travel and people talk about St. Lucia, you feel very proud about being a St. Lucian. You're very proud about it. Because I was in the Bahamas for the meeting of the African Import-Export Bank, and then we're speaking to them on some investment in housing. People are excited about our country, very excited. You heard from the Chamber of Commerce that the business sector, 70% of them, and again, these are not government statistics. These are not things said by ministers. Have confidence, their revenue increase, and they have confidence in the future of St. Lucia. So I'm very, very confident about St. Lucia. Very happy about what's happening in St. Lucia. We have some downside risks. One of the biggest ones I've told you before is hurricanes. I'm very concerned about the weather. Very concerned. I hope you don't have any problems with the hurricane. And we have the unending problem of gun violence. But I'm very excited about St. Lucia. Excited about the economy, excited about our tourism, excited about our investment, excited about the investment, our housing programs, our road programs. I'm very excited.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
It's June, and by now I think 4 buildings of St. Jude Hospital are supposed to be completed this month. What's the progress on the
again? That's another cause of my excitement.
Lots
of work is happening there.
What's the update with the construction and
lots of work is
as
happening
a
there.
contractor being selected?
There are some supply chain issues, because right now you see a hospital's main feature is not basically the building, it's the equipment, it's the things like the air condition, the piping. That's the hospital's main issue. A lot that has to be imported, all the piping, all the disposal. A hospital, the building is just part of it. But I'm saying to you, I have got an update. The air conditioning is being done as we speak. The air conditioning must be done before the ceiling is completed. That's happening now. We've got the tender. The tenders board has met on the second stage for the hospital. It has gone now to the Saudis for no objection. You understand? The minister doesn't determine the cost of the hospital. That doesn't happen in our government. It's done by tender. So there's an international tender which went out. The tenders board sat on it, and it's got to go to a no objection to the Saudi Development Fund. That has gone. As soon as we get that, we're going to get a final cost of the rest of the hospital. You will know, and when you know, it will be public knowledge, and we'll continue construction. But right now, we promised the 4 buildings. They're progressing very quickly. There were some supply chain issues. That's progressing. And again, we are very, very optimistic that St. Jude is going to be where it has to be for the people of St. Lucia.
Yeah, between the months of May and June, the United States, the Coast Guard has been very active in the Lesser Antilles and the Greater Antilles. They had multiple instances where, I believe in Martinique, 2 tons of cocaine was seized. I believe again in St. Croix, they had $7 million of cocaine, and I think marijuana was seized somewhere near Haiti. I need to know if that's on your radar, if that has brought up any concern, because this is you've been talking about national security and border control, and the issue of drugs seems to be becoming more prevalent in the Caribbean. So could you talk about that?
Yeah, well, St. Lucia has always had a strategic alliance with our neighbors, the French, Americans, and the British to a certain extent. And that strategic alliance is basically to have for drug fighting and gun trading. So that alliance has been working. In fact, we have right now as we speak, the French have given us one K9, which is going to be is being trained with the St. Lucian trainer. So there's always been a strategic alliance between the British, the French, and the St. Lucian authorities. But as in most intelligence matters, these things can't be disclosed in public. But that alliance is continuing because we always knew that the area is a place for the transshipment of drugs. That has been something that's happened for ages. But that alliance is worked on, and then we're sure that if we continue to work together, the scourge of guns and drugs into our country will be lessened. We need to work together. But you're very right, there's been increased activity in the waters recently.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. Can you tell us about your recent trip to the Bahamas?
Yes. I went to the meeting the African Export-Import Bank, and they're the ones we were one of the first countries to join into the treaty that made St. Lucia part of the bank. I've said before that it's time that we strengthen the ties with our traditional friends, the North. We have to look for new friends, the South. And in the South, we also have to look for the African continent. The African continent is growing. There are countries in Africa that are showing excessive growth and development. What we're doing is that we strengthen that alliance. And by being in the African Export-Import Bank, that alliance is strengthened, and we've got our first loan from them, $6 million, which is going to be used in the year of infrastructure for the repairs of schools. Again, when the time comes, I'll take you to see you see why I'm excited? I'll take you to see the school repairs that happen in this country. $6 million is going to put in school repairs. One of the schools that are going to be repaired, if I can tell you, is the Enchipo Secondary School, which just needs, and it was needed repairs for years, for ages. There was a block in that school that was closed for ages. That's going to be repaired. Many schools in the south are going to be repaired. So we were there to speak to them on increased support for St. Lucia, and one of those things that we spoke of is support for housing. So hopefully, we have some follow-up work to do. I mean, the president of the bank, I want to thank him. He's very, very excited about St. Lucia. Hopefully, we can make an announcement of some more developments in housing from the African Export-Import Bank.
Okay. In his address to the nation, the Minister for Tourism, Dr. Ernest Tiller, said that the government does not condone this underselling of our passports, and that action was taken for those companies that have been doing that.
He said action was taken?
Well, not action was taken, but the government does not encourage
the government
it.
has written that, yes.
Right. My question is that has any of those agents or companies been blacklisted, and when was that discovery made?
Well, I'll tell you what. In the matter of that issue, the minister has made it clear that St. Lucia does not condone underselling. That's our position. We don't condone underselling. The minister has made it clear. I have no reason to doubt the minister. Absolutely no reason to doubt him. He's made it clear. Secondly, we've signed on to the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement. So hopefully we can put some structure in the industry. But I'll tell you something. What concerns me is that St. Lucia has not been mentioned in these things. And it's a cause of concern because the emphasis has been on St. Kitts. Right? St. Kitts has the emphasis on St. Kitts. We are not involved in this matter of St. Kitts. That's an internal matter, and the government of St. Kitts is very capable of dealing with the matters. We're not involved in that. St. Lucia has had absolutely no dealings with the gentleman who has an issue in St. Kitts. There is a RICO suit has been filed. It's a civil matter. All we do is wait for it. Why are we so excited and speaking? Wait for it. I mean, there's a RICO suit that has been filed. Let's wait for it. Why are we so excited? I mean, I don't know why this causes so much excitement. Let the RICO, there's a suit in the courts. Let the chips fall where they have to fall. Why are we so excited and speculating? What was the reason for that? St. Lucia's got no issues. Oh, that's speculation. And the gentleman has made his claim. The claim is in the courts. Let the courts decide. Let's wait for it. Why are we not waiting for the courts only on this issue? Let the courts decide. St. Lucia's opposition has been clear. The minister has outlined St. Lucia's position clearly. So why are we speculating? I just don't find why are we speculating? We don't have faith in the U.S. courts? Isn't that why? Is it all in a sudden we don't have faith in the U.S. courts? I mean, we boast about the U.S. all the time. Why are we speculating? Why are we so excited? Why are we so excited in spoiling the country's good name? Let's wait for the courts. Because there is a case. There's a civil case that's been filed in the courts. Isn't that true? Let's wait for it. It's my position. As far as I'm concerned, what we're interested in is we're interested in ensuring that the CIP program, that the due diligence is thorough, the due diligence is as tight as possible, and the people benefit. That's my concern now. That's all I'm concerned about, that the due diligence is thorough. All measures that the due diligence is thorough. Secondly, I want the people of St. Lucia to benefit from the CIP. That's all. The rest of the matters are in the court. Let the court deal with it. Not me. Can't speculate. Can't. have faith in the legal system, the American legal system even more.
Yes, good day, sir. Just on the issue of the livable wage.
The who?
The livable wage, minimum wage. There is one aspect, I think, industrial relations, which would tie in. And I remember during the May Day presentation, there was the labor commissioner. And then I think there was some about liaising with the unions, getting the unions more involved, not to be antagonistic, but to work with the work alongside
the
government.
Involved.
Yes. So my question is about the structure of the labor commissioner's office. This has been a problematic.
I forgot to tell you.
So I want to know: is there some work being done?
I forgot to tell you. So many things happen in
this
this country that I forget. You know what I mean? People remind me what's happening in this country. I forgot to tell you. You may recall that Dr. Kenny Anthony, the former Prime Minister, spoke about the labor office. Right? I want to tell you that very shortly, a permanent secretary is going to be appointed to deal with labor matters. Didn't happen before. So the labor office is being reorganized and headed by a permanent secretary, because you also know that the ministry that dealt with labor has also been reorganized. Right now, you have a Minister of Home Affairs, Crime Prevention, and Persons with Disabilities. And the other minister, Dr. Poyet, is Minister of Public Service, Gender Affairs, and Labor. So we've taken some of the workload away from that ministry, we've divided it. So the prisons, and you know what's happening in the fire service. Lots of things happening in the fire service. Lots of things happening. So that's why, you see why I'm very excited about St. Lucia. Look at the civils, look at the fire service. New ambulances, new fire appliances for the airport, new fire appliances, new ambulances. You saw what we did for the police in terms of vehicles, and right now, look at what's happening at Bordelais. More equipment, the fencing is happening, and you know what? We saved on the fencing. So we have fencing at Bordelais, we have new recruits at Bordelais, we have new recruits at the fire service. You understand? So we have a minister to deal with that specifically. And in terms of the Labor Department, right now, the new configuration for the ministry, there is now a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Labor. So look to they have an office in Sansi for the Labor Tribunal. We have some issues there. That's going to be resolved. We have a very competent prospect to be permanent secretary. So the issues surrounding labor, because my government hasn't got to make a case for labor. That's what we are. We have to make a case for it, when people try to fight and say they are for workers and things, so my government doesn't have to. That's what we are. That's where we came from. And I always say to young people, know the history. That's where we came from. We are a party that came from the labor movement. Sir George F.L. Charles. We are the party of adult suffrage. So we don't have to raise our hands and shout and scream and say, we are for workers. No. That's what we are. That's where we came. That's our history. So in terms of minimum wage, that's what the labor parties do. You understand? So that's why we don't worry with the so-called self-proclaimed people who all of a sudden play that they are in for labor, for rights of workers. That's why we don't worry about that, because that's fluff and bluff. But where we came from, our roots, look at the history, adult suffrage, Contract of Services Act. Look at it. And again, you must give credit to Sir John Compton, because at some point he was heavily involved, because he also was involved with Sir George F.L. Charles in these struggles. You understand? So that's why we give credit to him for these things. So we don't have to jump and shout. We are the party that said once the 51% of the workers in an organization that is part of a union, union recognition is automatic. That's us. We're the party of equal wages for men and women. That's us. So our history, and this is why I always beg young people to read the history and not get it only from talk shows or from politicians. Let the history come from do not subscribe to things politicians say and take it as gospel, including me. Including me, you know. I'm not leaving myself out. When politicians make pronouncements and they go on their high horse I mean, that's what I said, you know, check it out, including me. Including me.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, hi.
So on a different topic, I've noticed that sometimes climate resilience kind of goes under the rug in terms of infrastructure. So we've seen the Ministry of Infrastructure implement a national policy, energy policy. We're seeing many new buildings coming up in Castries. However, we're kind of losing all of our green spaces. So aside from George V and the Derek Walcott Square, it's kind of almost like a concrete jungle in Castries. So are there any moves to ensure that all of the new infrastructure projects that we're seeing coming up factors in climate resilience, especially now with the hurricane season? The hotter it is, the worse it's going to be for us. And of course, you can definitely feel it when you're in Castries. So are there plans to do so?
Well, Castries is only that small, that size, right? So I can't tell you we can create green space. I can't, because we need to have this space to create green space, right? What I can tell you is that climate resilience, as you know, there's climate adaptation and climate mitigation. The two concepts that we have to deal with. Both of them are in the forefront of all countries, because the issue of climate, is not an issue of St. Lucia only, you know. It's an issue for the whole world. Look at what's happening they were in North America. In Miami, there was 12 inches of rain last week. 12 inches of rain in 1 or 2 days last week in Miami, in Florida. 12 inches of rain. So the climate problem is a massive problem. Right now in California, they're worried about fires for summer. So this is why I have begged the opposition, let's work together on climate matters. Let's ensure that anytime we borrow money, there's a climate resilience clause, as we negotiated with the Saudi loan. And you may recall again, when we built the Bois-d'Orange Bridge, the bridge was built with climate resilience in mind, right? It was built with special features for climate resilience. You listen to the bombardment that came through, that I came on, the bombardment, commissions of inquiry, all kind of things. How can a bridge cost that amount of money? All kind. I don't know if you listen to that. I don't know if you remember that. But you know, we had the foresight. We had the foresight to know, listen to me, we have to build a bridge that is climate resilience. Now, get to your question. The buildings in Castries, the House of Justice, I know that's what is the topic of interest now. In there, the architects and the engineers are ensuring that that building is built with standards, so to have both the mitigation and the adaptation. So you can rest assured that there are clauses that will ensure that these buildings can adapt and mitigate for climate problems. But your concern about climate is very, 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 very relevant. And this is why we say to people, everybody, to play their part. But that's what I don't sleep over. You see all the noise happening? That's not what concerns me. What concerns me one day is to get up one morning and to find a hurricane has struck St. Lucia, and then our infrastructure has been. That's what concerns me. That's what concerns all politicians who have the welfare of the country at heart. What can we do? How can we advise people not to throw stuff in the rivers, not to cut trees unnecessarily, not to take these practices, these legal practices, littering, so that we can't block our waterways. That's what I want the politicians to get involved in. Because you know what all of us fighting for? One morning, we may get up and find there is nothing to fight over. There's nothing to fight over, So what are we fighting about? Creating all kind of confusion. If we do not get together on that matter, and I'm literally begging the opposition on the climate matter, let's get together. That's when I'll talk to them. Climate matters, we have a discussion on Mindofile Park, or even on the boulevard. Climate matters. That is my biggest concern, my biggest concern. That one morning I may get up and there may be no country to manage. It happened already. I saw it in my own. I saw it in Dominica. I mean, I was speaking to the Prime Minister on the phone, and he said to me that he's expecting some rain. The Prime Minister of Dominica is expecting some rain, right? And then in the same conversation, he tells to me, "Hold on, my roof is going." I mean, that's an experience I'll never forget. We were speaking on the phone about expecting some rain. The next moment, his roof was going, and the rest is history. So that's what I want. I want you to ask the politicians in the opposition, right, that what they're fighting for might be wiped out if we have hurricanes. Let's get together on that one, please.
The DPP is expected to update the country on.
I never commented on DPP. Never. I never commented on I never called for him to do anything. I never comment on the DPP. The DPP is an independent. I don't comment on it. So I will not make any comment on DPP.
Oh, okay.
I can't. I can't comment on it.
Just briefly back to the CIP. My question is, did the government sanction the CEO's trip to New York?
The CEO said he went to the private matter. The government has to do that. The CEO said for himself he wouldn't. He said he went on his own. The government. You see, I want to make sense the last time for all those who want to hear it. There is a RICO case in the U.S. courts, a civil matter. Let's wait for it. Let's wait. We have no issues. The issues that surround St. Lucia's CIP are speculation and accusations. There is a civil case in the courts of the U.S. Let us wait for the results of the civil case. And let's go on. Let's go on. From now on, no questions, no answer in the CIP for me. No answers there. So you ask me, I'll respectfully tell you, with great respect, wait for the RICO case. That's what I'm going to tell you from now on. Because there's a matter in the courts. So I'm making no comment again. Done. Let me make the comment that I will make again, so I can be quoted correctly. Because these are the days when people manipulate and take quotes and put it there. And this. Here's what I'm going to tell you again. For the CIP program, my responsibility and the government's responsibility is to ensure that there are rigorous due diligence processes that ensures that we limit or even eliminate bad actors, number one. Number two, we'll see if the CIP program will benefit the people of St. Lucia directly and not other people to use, not other taxpayers of the country to lose money because of bad deals, which has happened. The taxpayers have lost money because of bad deals by the last government as far as CIP is concerned. I'm speaking about the range project, a fact. And the third thing, as far as I'm concerned with the CIP, is we are working with countries who have a similar CIP program to ensure if we can restructure or structure the CIP so that we can meet standards that are acceptable to all the countries and to our European partners. That is my position on the CIP. And this is what I'm going to say from now on the CIP. Anybody who has anything to say, we are in a country of free speech, so you can speculate, you can wish for bad, you can hope that the worst comes to them. I'll tell you something. Listen. Just finally, on the CIP thing. Do you know that the St. Lucia government had to negotiate for years, and it's our government, the Labour Party government, had negotiated for years to allow people from St. Lucia to go to Martinique without a visa? It took years of negotiations, years. And it came under our government, Kenny Anthony as Prime Minister. That's when it happened. Do you know? It took, again, negotiations to allow the Canadians to have a different visa status as far as St. Lucia is concerned. If you have an American passport, you can get it easy. Yes. But there are some people in this country who are hoping and praying because of their political motives that St. Lucia, that we lose our Sengen status, because selfish political motives, as if they win the election, it come back automatically. It won't. And that's what I want to tell the people of St. Lucia. Look at the future. Look beyond the 26 elections. Look beyond it. Elections are in 2026. That's when they're going to come. That's when they're going to be held. In 2026. So let's look beyond it. So when you burn the house, and if necessarily you burn the house and you kill the rats, what you'll do? How you will rebuild the house? How will you rebuild it? So when you pray that you spoil St. Lucia's good name, you pray that people in St. Lucia get arrested and get things, you think is the person you are affecting? The person will get the punishment if they deserve it. But the country is the one that... So when you wish and you create all kinds of things, hoping that St. Lucia loses its Sengen visa, you say all kinds, you go abroad, you make all kinds of accusations, you ensure you say things to ambassadors that are not true. You say things to the press that's not true. You talk about the country that this country has no democracy. This country, look at me talking to you. You write whatever you want about me. Why I come out today? I never complain. I've never complained. You ever see me ever accuse any journalist of being unfair or being a jailbird? You ever heard me do that? Have I ever done that? Have you ever seen me taunt any journalist or walk away from him? You speak to me at a time, you tell me whatever you want. I mean, I don't. Have you heard me ever attack any talk show host? They say whatever they want about me. Most of it is not true. You ever hear me attack them? I don't. That's the democracy we live in. How can you say this country is not a democratic country? In this St. Lucia, are we living in an alternative country? This St. Lucia is not democratic? Civil servants, police officers, write on Facebook the most disparaging things about the Prime Minister. Police officers are on Facebook saying the worst things about the Prime Minister, and they put their names. Apart from the false, some of the false, what do you call it, your young people, the false one? False status, what do you call it? No. There's something when you have a false... Pseudos. Apart from the operating on pseudos, some of them, they put their own names. Some police officers say the worst things about me. Well, that again is freedom of expression, poetic freedom. And you say this country is not democratic? This St. Lucia? Come on, man. So when you say this kind of thing, what you're doing is you're damaging your country, a country you want to govern. So it will not change automatically, you know. We learned that the hard way. So I want to tell you that the politics aside, let's preserve St. Lucia. let's look at St. Lucia after 2026. The people will make the decision. The people of St. Lucia have always made wise decisions. They do what they have to do. The Labour Party always accepts it. Look at our history again. Look at our history. I'm saying when Julian Hunt was the opposition, he said to the government, let's work on bananas and crime. Look at our history. When Kennedy, he says, all the loans that you've taken already, that we will support them. When Ken Anthony was leader of the opposition, was prime minister, he said, let's work on the CIP together. He invited the opposition to work on the CIP with him. When Ken Anthony was leader. So that's our history, you know. You know, I always ask people to look at our history and fact check us. I always beg people that. Fact check us, fact check both sides. Look at our history, the facts that surround us, and their history and the fact that surround them. And you'll see. Okay? So, see you at cricket. Enjoy it. Bye-bye.